We're live.
All right. Thank you all for coming out this evening. As always, we will begin with public comment. According to Policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. We have one public comment signed up, Laura Foster.
Hey, Laura, East Rock Hill. A question I had about curriculum was in the 5th grade, Unit 1, the change from the triangle trade and slavery to use of exploration to colonies. I'm just curious to hear from Jenna, like, how that transition happened and who originated that change, if it was like through the curriculum supervisors or if it was from someone on the board. I'd just be interested to know in that. Also, while I'm up here, because I had to leave early, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Ricky's involvement. I don't see her here today in the curriculum committee. So I'm sure you've all seen Darren's article about how Ricky and Jordan covered up and lied about them removing books. I would say to both of these women that if they are refuting what was said, that they provide proof because their words are absolutely meaningless at this point. I do not want these like Machiavellian archetypes having any role in my child's education. They are the antithesis of ethical leaders and a disgrace to our district. Ricky should in no way be a part of the curriculum committee. She is openly transphobic. She has constantly mislabeled trans girls as boys. She has these ridiculous posts, if you guys have all seen these, that she keeps up on Facebook, which is openly making fun of transgender people. She's never apologized for these or ever even acknowledged that this is a part of her online social media presence. She, now we know that she and Jordan took it upon themselves to usurp all board policies and protocols to remove books that they didn't like. They will keep using the line that the books that they removed are because they believe that they are pornographic, because they don't understand context clues. It really makes me wonder what kind of porn that they are watching, if they consider that writing about 2 girls kissing themselves are inappropriate. Ricky has never apologized for any of her posts. She doesn't have any insight to looking outside of her own little bubble in the world. She has no place on this board. She definitely doesn't have any place on curriculum. God knows what other shady crap she's done with curriculum. Oh wait, we do know. You remember Vermillion? Yeah, we remember that. Remember who was involved with that? Remember Jordan Adams and Children First getting the tapes of him at the Moms for Liberty conference and what he said to do? Sounds a little familiar, right? What they said was for him to start to cause chaos, take over policies, put admin on notice. Ricky and Jordan, and honestly Bob and Christine, too, are the holdovers from this nefarious way to run a board. We cannot look past this egregious behavior as something that happened in the past. All of what they did impacts my children today. All of those books need to go back in the library today. If you want, I actually have all the damn books at my house. I can bring them to you if you'd like. But better yet, maybe Jordan and Ricky should pay for new books to come to the library since they were the ones that pulled them out of circulation.
That's time.
Thank you very much. And if anyone wants to have copies of what they posted online, just see me.
All right. So, just as a aside, we would like to note that the tech school does have their graduation tonight. So, should anyone see any administrators or board members throughout the course of this meeting who have to depart for that, that would be why the people are getting up and departing. But we are going to start tonight with the middle school science curriculum proposal from Mrs. Tamburino.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone, for your time tonight. I'm very excited to present our middle school science committee findings. This is the culmination of many months of hard work and evaluation by our Penridge teachers and our invested stakeholders. So, as you know, and I talked a little bit about this at the last close here, the catalyst for our changing needs in the science department was driven by the adoption of the Pennsylvania STEEL standards. Those are the science, technology, engineering, and environmental literacy and sustainability standards that were adopted in the spring of 2022. And these standards outline the three-dimensional approach of science education and push forward a new way of instructing students in the science classroom. The Pennsylvania Steel Standards guide the study of the natural and human-made world through inquiry, problem-solving, critical thinking, and authentic exploration. So one of the things that is outlined in both the Pennsylvania Steel Standards and the Next Generation Science Standards is the concept of three-dimensional learning. So three-dimensional learning is the pathway through which the standards are organized, and they showcase a new way to experience science instruction. Here, the disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts make up the concept that is three-dimensional learning. Now, the DCIs are what we'd like students to know, and this is most traditionally thought of as the science standards, the science content, and those key concepts that fall into life sciences, earth and space sciences, physical sciences, engineering and technology. These are being coupled with what they are calling the science and engineering practices, and these are those methods and skills which students need to really do the science, and we talked a little bit about that. And what they have here are the cross-cutting concepts, and these are the concepts that encourage conceptual thinking across disciplines, and they emphasize how students are thinking and connecting science understandings. So these three elements are very important to the way of learning science now.
Do you have an example?
I do. So I'll just go back so I can reference. So
Cross-cutting concepts.
the cross-cutting concepts. These are things that include identifying patterns, talking about cause and effect relationships, talking about how structure relates to function. So being able to take particular elements and examples in one discipline of science, maybe a life science example, and being able to connect and identify that there are patterns in all areas of science. So they might be able to create a connection to a novel idea.
You have a real life example. I'm following
That's
the
okay.
concept.
So we could think about structure and function as one of the things that we could identify here. So the structure or function of body systems, that each one of our body systems has a particular and unique function and structure. We also might understand that structure and function when we're talking about engineering, building a bridge. They would want to build that with a unique structure and function that would cause stability. And then maybe being able to draw connections.
To borrow a metaphor, we often think in school about subjects as like a crayon box. Your social studies is distinct from your English, is distinct from your biology, is distinct from your physics, is distinct from all of these other things. But in real life, it's much more of a lovely splatter paint. All of these things bleed into each other. They all connect to each other. You don't do one without the other. It's why we have an approach in schools that is exposing kids to many different subjects, and this is just moving that more openly into science.
Helps build their problems.
Absolutely.
Which is the best
Thank
thing.
you. So the way in which these three dimensions are introduced to students is often through the model of instruction known as the 5 E's. And this is really the foundation of the curriculum programs that we have been looking at, those resources. And they seek to engage students, allow them to explore, explain, then have students elaborate on those understandings before getting to the formal evaluation process. So I really liked this image as it broke down the 5 E's because it showcases that this is really kind of an ongoing evolution towards the center of evaluation, always seeking to help students better understand the concepts. But one of the things that's different about this approach, and one of the things that's being ushered in by the new Pennsylvania Steel Standards, is that opportunity to engage students first. And this is created through identifying an introductory or anchor phenomenon, which you mentioned a little bit about how things are more integrated now. So this phenomenon seeks to capture the attention of students before explaining all of the information related to the concept or topic. So traditionally, you might have seen, a textbook chapter, we're going to talk about chemical interactions and everything related to that. And there might have been more front-loading of the information, but here we seek to first capture students' attention, have them explore a little bit in our second element here of this instructional model, and then go into the process of explaining some of the underlying concepts. So students are able to first engage by activating that prior knowledge, then they move into exploring new ideas, problem solving, some inquiry-based activities, and then we can go into that teacher support where concepts and procedures are formally presented and practiced, before then students taking the combination of their efforts and elaborating through the use of new problems and novel situations. All of this working towards that evaluation of three-dimensional understanding of the content. Oh, excuse me. So I just wanted to highlight some of the instructional shifts in science that are brought upon by these new science, Pennsylvania Science Steel standards. And what you might see is less rote memorization of facts and terminology. As the assessment changes, the emphasis is going to be on students developing explanations and designing solutions. And so this is what we seek to have within our curriculum resources. Learning of ideas going from disconnected to that integrated approach that we talked about, really emphasizing that critical thinking and modeling. And moving away from teachers providing the information to having students uncover and investigate. We will see less of teachers posing questions that only have one right answer. We look to have more opportunities for students to have those open-ended questions that strengthen their ability to support with evidence and to generate clinics. You'll see less of students simply reading textbooks and answering questions, and we look to have multiple resources for students to engage, gather information and data to support their ideas. And again, looking at something that was more traditional, maybe like a cookbook type of laboratory experiment where you might have already known or anticipated what the end result might be. And we look to have multiple investigations that are driven by student questions and student wondering. So really bringing that curiosity into the classroom. So I just wanted to highlight the process that the middle school science curriculum committee took. After the adoption of the Pennsylvania Steel standards, the teachers and administrators from Penridge put together the curriculum team to determine potential programs for our school. During the pre-screening process, teachers and administrators attended the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Steels Vendor Fair, where they saw a multitude of vendors present their curriculum that is in line with the Pennsylvania Steel's standards. And this gave us the opportunity to identify 4 vendors that we welcomed back to our school specifically to present on their programs. So we completed a paper screening process, which was a full day deep dive into the curriculum resource opportunities within these 4 vendors, and the curriculum committee was able to both review and discuss the benefits of each of these programs. Yes, and I really want to thank Mrs. Chirino for being a part of that very exciting day.
Yeah, it was great.
I know.
It was so nice to see everyone get together and the presentation, the dedication that the teachers had,
It was.
and the presenters, and just like how they got into it. They were like kids looking at all this. So it was
Very
fabulous. It was
exciting
really
stuff,
great to be a
yes.
part of that.
And now we are at the final stage of this process where we begin to plan on how to implement the new programs. So just to reiterate that our science grades 6 through 8 curriculum committee members included 2 administrators, 1 board member, thank you, Ms. Sharina, 3 coaches, 1 parent, and 13 teachers. So we did have a very nice representation from our elementary, middle, and high school level. One of the things that we really wanted to be cognizant of is that identifying how the standards grow and develop from our elementary school to our secondary level. So our team meetings included the vendor presentations, which took place on Thursday, March 28th, for a full day. It was, as we mentioned before, a very long and exciting process. We were able to see wonderful presentations from the 4 vendors: Carolina Science Ed, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Twig Science, and No Atom. From that date until April 23rd, our committee members had access to the digital platforms to further investigate and to kind of deep dive into those materials and resources. We came back together on Tuesday, April 23rd to review both the physical and digital materials from the top 2 programs, which were Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Science Dimensions and Twig Science. The final vote by committee determined that our most aligned resource in the program that teachers and committee members were most excited about was Twig Science. So Twig Science is a phenomenon-driven curriculum resource that really anchors the instructional resources in that natural phenomenon. And that's really that engage aspect of the 5 E's model of instruction. It includes 3-dimensional learning and presents the information in an inquiry-based format. As I mentioned, the lessons are sectioned using the 5E instructional model, and it does include suggestions for differentiated instruction at multiple levels. There are many hands-on learning experiences within the program. When speaking to the Twig Science representatives, they detailed 59 hands-on learning opportunities in grade 6, 69 in grade 7, and 72 in grade 8. This curriculum is aligned to the Pennsylvania STEEL standards. It emphasizes critical thinking skills among students, and it includes both print and digital resources. I would like to jump over to the formal proposal.
Can we, the rest of the board, have some sort of access to it or something?
Oh, absolutely.
Just some, I think everybody would want to learn more about it.
Certainly.
We have some big copies upstairs.
I do, yeah.
We can bring a few.
The digital links that, is that something we could get also?
Mm-hmm.
There, I guess there was like some digital links for
Yes.
some of it. That would be great.
I can send those over.
Okay, perfect.
No problem. So here is our curriculum and development proposal for Twig Science, which will address the curriculum needs of grade levels 6 through 8. Again, prompted by the adoption of the Pennsylvania STEEL standards in 2022, we now see that this is expected to be fully implemented by the end of the 2025 school year. And we will see the 2025 science PSSA in the 5th grade classroom now. It's moving from 4th to 5th grade, and it will include questions that showcase the 3-dimensional learning.
Wait, I'm sorry, you're saying the science PSSA will no longer be in 4th grade? It
No.
will now be in 5th grade?
Yes, so it's shifting, so this next year,
Yeah,
it will be in 5th grade,
and then 8th grade still?
and still in 8th grade.
Okay.
They, fourth graders taking class.
They are, yes, any
Yeah.
4th grade
So lucky.
student, I know, they're the lucky bunch.
You need a donut.
But yes, so they will see it again, and we'll probably be able to notice some of the changes, because they are changing the questions themselves to be more of that 3-dimensional learning format.
So they'll be field tested this coming.
Yes.
They
will
won't
not-
count towards accountability for us for
No.
any questions,
Yes,
but the following year they will count.
yes, the former science standards are being sunset on June 30th of 2025. So with that information, we are very excited to be looking at curriculum resources for our science department at the middle school level. The formulation of the committee was this spring in 2023, and we were very excited, as I mentioned before, to see such a turnout of invested stakeholders, teachers, administrators, board members, and parents. The course itself, the Twig Science program itself, has many shared goals that we have with our own program. Twig Science presents investigation-based science learning, including multimodal investigation, so really just we're seeing digital labs, we're seeing traditional hands-on learning experiences, we're taking multiple resources together and really having students exposed to lots of data and information and allowing them to come to their own conclusions. And that's really an emphasis of the STEEL standards and what we're looking for in 3-dimensional assessment, is being able to present students with information and have them drawing their own conclusions. Twig Science fosters the hands-on learning, inquiry-based experiences. Students are cultivating critical thinking skills and it does encourage students to ask questions and explore the world around them. We talked a lot in our meeting at as we were evaluating different programs on trying to encourage curiosity and wonder with our students. And the teachers and the committee at large felt that this program did that. The Twig Science program is organized into units that they refer to as volumes. Each grade level has 4 volumes comprised of 2 to 3 chapters, which they do refer to as modules. And these modules are then broken down into lessons that have particular sessions. So sessions are what students will be experiencing at the daily level. Again, the Twig Science program is utilizing the 5 E's instructional model. So students will be engaging with the anchor phenomenon, then exploring through the disciplinary core ideas and gathering those authentic science and engineering practices, and then trying to make those connections with cross-cutting concepts. They'll then have an opportunity to explain their new ideas and construct scientific arguments. They'll be able to further elaborate their new understandings before finally evaluating them. And then you can see here, just broken down a little bit more about the structure and how students and teachers might see the information presented. They're utilizing driving questions for each lesson. Phenomenon tracker is a way for students to kind of assess their daily learning based on their understanding of the phenomenon itself. There are plenty of opportunities for exploration and explaining through the hands-on labs, video labs. There's a very interactive digital platform with Twig Science, which is very user-friendly and student-friendly. There's the opportunity to elaborate on those understandings, and that's where we can see those connections and critical thinking being made. And finally, there's multiple opportunities for evaluation. The Twig Science platform has opportunities for pre-explorations, identifying what prior knowledge students have, and also the daily exit tickets are included in there, and they're building to the benchmark assessment, which includes both multiple choice and short performance assessment questions. This is in line with what we expect to see in the UPSSAs.
Another thing it does, is it talks to students, it shows students careers that they can get into.
Yes.
Volcanologist and
Yes.
talks about, oh, well, in this type of science, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. That was another feature.
Very nice connection to the careers in science, and I think that's one of the things that they're trying to build through that integration. And a lot of these science and engineering practices are those skills that students can be expected to see in areas of engineering, technology, and science careers. For the cost of the program, the presentation here includes the 6-year contract, which we negotiated with Twig Science, and shows the savings that we can acquire through a multi-year contract. We have locked in our pricing per item for the next 6 years, and this does protect us from potential price increases and allows us to purchase the quantities that we want each year. It doesn't lock us into a certain enrollment. So we already made those, we negotiated and made sure that was an element of our.
We spent a lot of time with them on that.
Yeah.
And then we worked with our business office on that. Because some companies will charge you just a flat, if you give them a number to start with,
Yeah.
it's always the same number. But Christine did a really nice job with that to ensure that it's gonna be based on our enrollment. Should our enrollment go down, you're only paying for licenses for the students that you have.
Yeah. We asked a lot of questions. So here I wanted to showcase both the overall anticipated or estimated cost, as well as the estimated cost per year. So these are the student print journal bundles, which is essentially those printed elements and components of this curriculum resource. Everything that's in the printed journal is also available on the student platform. So teachers can utilize both the printed and the digital elements and aspects of this. Really do want to encourage students to utilize the digital in many ways because it does show a very engaging and interactive platform for students to use. Here we did negotiate the price of the digital platform per student if paid annually, what originated at $21, and we got it reduced to $16 per student. So this is giving us a very nice savings per year and over the course of the 6 years.
The 22,800 is the cost per year for the digital based on that.
Cost per year for the
And
digital.
16, what was the, can we go up?
Sure,
16.2 per year.
for the
And
printed.
if we went with 1 year only, is that what you're comparing it to?
That was what my comparison here is, because it would be originally, just the
Sure.
digital licenses themselves would be.
If we buy year one,
Mhm.
okay, and we go up.
Yeah. And then, yeah, that was one of the issues that I had, looking at a 1-year contract. Currently, they're saying, the Twig Journal is $30 per student, but next year it could very well go up. And most of them. So I also wanted to list kind of the investment here, which includes year one only purchases. So these include the science equipment and materials that teachers will be housing in their classrooms and will be utilized from year to year. These are not things that need to be repurchased every year. So this includes the module kit bundle, the equipment kit. We are buying teacher's guides for each teacher, and they recommended the journal answer bundle, which provides them with sample responses to the questions. We thought this was a really integral part of this program because they're going to start to phrase their questions differently and we will continue to support teachers as we utilize this program. But this does present us with an opportunity to look at some of the responses we should expect to get from students in terms of utilizing the evidence-based answer and responding. And then the refill kit bundles, these are the anticipated costs for years 2 through 6. That's broken down by grade level. So when we get
That
to
would be a yearly cost. Yeah.
that's per year,
the ones
and we no longer have to purchase the year one only items.
Right,
Yeah.
so the first year cost is 176. Is that? No, just supplies.
No, because this includes the 82,000, which is
So
gonna
that's
take
total of,
place.
so what's year one cost, because it's, what, the next question.
I have that right down at the bottom.
Okay.
We would like to invest in professional development for our teachers. This includes a on-site day with our Twig professional staff and 2 virtual trainings to kind of monitor and support teachers as we move through the course of the school year. Shipping and handling is broken down here, with the bulk of it taking place the first year because they are shipping us out the equipment and the kits for each teacher. And then that will be approximately $3,200 over the course every year for years 2 through 6. And then if we look down here at total estimated cost, $153,122.20 for the first year, and then it drops significantly over the course of the next 5 years. So we do not anticipate any staffing changes. In terms of anything that's being dropped, we are just replacing the materials that are utilized in the classroom, primarily with the Twig Science materials. Those kits will be able to be utilized every day. We do anticipate being able to support teachers in August, pending board approval on the 18th of June. And then we will seek to continue to support teachers and administrators through professional learning throughout the year. That concludes the proposal. Thank you.
So thinking about the pilot,
Yeah.
and this was a committee, so I mean, a pilot is a good idea, and the results came back that this is not the right resource for us. So are we more confident in this because the committee, it was a different approach to evaluating the resource?
I think to answer that question, it would be helpful for everyone to understand that our teachers have been exploring this type of learning through resources that are they have done a lot of that exploration, and they went through the training on the steel standards. And so I think what makes the Discovery Ed pilot different than where we got to this time was teacher expertise and teacher exploration in the classroom. So not only were certain teachers in different buildings using the free resources, other teachers went to see them. So there was already a lot of conversation with the teachers. They are more than comfortable moving in this direction now. They did not ask for a pilot. They would like to move forward
Okay.
because they're ready,
Mm-hmm.
willing, and perfectly able.
Yeah.
And at this point, we feel like that's the right move to make, especially with changes coming this year
Yeah.
with testing. Even though they're field testing, we're connecting CDTs, the classroom diagnostic tools. They're free from the state, online testing for our kids. They're putting field tests in those field questions in those tests as well. So we're going to get a really good sense of what are they going to look like. And this program is a wonderful implementation of that expectation on the way students are going to be asked questions. So coupled with that, the CDTs and with this resource, we think that we best prepare our kids for they're big changes. This is big changes, not just for kids, it's big changes for teachers, which is why we want to invest in the professional development of teachers and just keep side by side coaching and training with them until they feel comfortable. It's not a tweak.
Okay.
They are rolling it out this year,
Yeah.
this fall.
Yes,
And it's only for 6th through 8th, correct?
now.
And it's a lot for like the total cost, the $447. I know you said there's some free resources that go along with Twig. Is that the free resources?
No, there's Open SciEd is a free resource. It is enormous. I mean, it is just enormous. You couldn't take that. We tried,
Yeah.
believe you me. It's way too much and it's not compacted and it's not put into a program. That's the free resource that the teachers have been using, but it's unwieldy.
Okay.
And it will not be helpful for us to be able to implement with all of our teachers and our students. That's the free.
And then my question always comes down to the content and how can we ensure that it's balanced? Because, again, just the heavy hitters I feel like climate change, which even the elementary schools right now, it's very one-sided. There's not the other. It's even in the reading programs, like Making Meaning, climate change, there's a lot of readings in there, at least for my 5th grader. So I just want to ensure that they have, where is that in here? Do they, the critical thinking piece, like you mentioned that so much, that's
Yeah.
great. But just to make sure we have that, same with like, battery operated vehicles and make sure we're representing both sides there. Even as much as it goes back to like, the Earth's been around for billions of years, or you're talking about both creation and evolution, like just having both, like just that's always what, if we truly are about critical thinking and we're making sure that we're showing both sides to it. Because I can see even with my own, children, if I'm not talking about the climate change, that was his one writing. So that they only saw that one side and went through like the story. So and it's not like heavy, it's passive, it's not like it's very like in depth, but it's still there. So just wanting to ensure that those things aren't leaning one way. And what will we do? Will we take other resources to bring in to, like, I don't know what that would look like.
We would like to always be able to present science as it is with the least amount of bias. I think one of the things that you might see as a difference with this type of science program is they're really very focused on allowing students to draw their own conclusions. And that is one of the shifts I mentioned a little earlier in the presentation. It's not trying to convince a student to think one way or the other, and that the information is presented so that students can draw their own conclusions and support their arguments with evidence. So I think with that being the foundation of this program and really science in general, that's what you can hope to see.
That's what I hope so, because I agree, if they're reading something, they're drawing their conclusions, but if what they're reading is only
Yeah,
limited, then they only have that to draw their conclusions
Yeah.
from. So that's just always my concern.
certainly.
And with Miss Vitale, like when she did the social studies, I know it's different because elementary is like, they only have half the year to teach science and half the year social studies. Will this be similar where in Atlas, will it be like 6th grade, unit 1, chapters so-and-so and lessons so-and-so? Will that be something that will be in there that's kind of similar? Or will they basically be covering it all because that will be their own individual class, they have that the whole year with this resource?
It will be an atlas
It-
where it will be
yeah.
identifiable on
Yeah.
what part of text is being used.
Yeah.
So it will say like
That's what
chapter,
you're talking about,
kind of like
a
what,
module or.
Yeah,
okay,
it will.
however, they're.
Yeah, we're gonna try and be as detailed as possible to support the teachers
Sure.
as well as anyone who is looking at the curriculum, understand where we're at in the units. The way that science bands their standards is 6 through 8. So if we do make any adjustments to where this standard is addressed, all of the standards of the steels will be addressed. It's just kind of where they are. That might change.
But that would be identified. If it's
Yeah.
a band and not a 6th grade standard, because they're not.
Yeah.
They're banded 6,
Yeah.
7, 8.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
that will be identified in Atlas.
Yeah.
And then the titles we'll use will match what the resource says, because they don't all say the same thing.
Mhm.
So you're gonna see different words, but you're
Yeah.
still gonna be able to say, oh, they're on module 6 and it's on
Exactly.
Mhm.
that, so you would be able to see it.
Mhm.
We did see some, when we were looking through, because one of the criteria on the rubric is bias, is this bias?
Yeah.
And we did see, and you'll be able to look at,
Yeah.
I'll give you some hard copies of this, you'll be able to see how things are presented. And we all thought that they were presented in a very non-biased way.
Yeah.
Because the whole ultimate goal of this is getting kids to kind of say, hey, I'm gonna present this, and not just here, I'm only gonna present one thing.
No.
I'm gonna present all these.
Yeah.
A lot of it is tables with data and
Yeah.
what kind of analysis can you do, or what conclusions do you draw from that table? It's a lot of that. It's
And
hard, it's difficult, it's
it
far
is.
more challenging than what they have right now.
And it's never like a single source of information that is being presented for students to draw conclusions. They're utilizing videos, journal articles, yes, it's been kind of curated by the
Mhm.
program itself, which I really appreciated. And again, as I went through in that, that kind of shift of instructional practices that we're seeing, we're not looking for a single right answer. And I think that's one of the changes and shifts that, as science students, they're really gonna notice is that they can draw conclusions based on the evidence and the information that they're presenting. And that is also one of the elements that we're gonna start to see in the assessment piece, is that the information is being presented without bias so that students can draw their own conclusions. And what we're really trying to assess is their ability to critically think and support their reasoning and rationale with evidence. So those are really the skills that we're trying
We
to.
could look at the same table and draw different conclusions.
Yes, that was one of the things that we really liked. Yeah, it's not trying to force
One.
that.
And then just my last question is, for budget purposes, for the 447,000, where's that budget? Just because the budget for science and maybe it's somewhere else is like 160, so where
That's
do we
That's
know that
like
might,
6 years.
that maybe, so it's 447 for 6
Just
years?
for
Okay.
the six years, we
Okay.
already
Yeah.
budgeted a certain amount,
Okay.
we worked hard on budgeting with the
Yeah.
budget off, with our
So
finance.
this is
Yeah.
on the budget.
We have the budget for this year one, so that we can budget the 50 or
Yes,
whatever
and then the
it is.
50 will be budgeted.
That would be-
Okay.
thank you.
We figured it all out.
So we'll all have an opportunity to take a look at the curriculum.
And
Yeah.
we'll send you the links.
Sounds like there's a lot of good work in there,
Yes.
and a group of people.
It was,
Thankful that the teachers were involved.
it was a lot of fun to look at.
It's exciting because I love, people should learn more critical thinking skills in schools.
Absolutely.
So it makes them much more successful in the future.
Yes,
And
and
solve their own problems.
And I encourage everyone to check out the trailers. They have an engagement piece at the beginning that really excites students to learning a little more. So I'll try and detail that when I share it.
Good that
Send
you're
them on,
excited.
you know, on that.
I will send them.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you much. All right. At this point, next up, we have Mr. Dyer on the College and Careers Pathways programs.
You wanna come over? You wanna come here?
I can come down, yeah, that's all right. Doesn't matter to me.
You okay? I'm good.
Well,
As long as I don't have to lift
awesome.
it. It's the lifting I can't. Sir? So, that's good evening. Number one, thank you for your flexibility and understanding. So I'm glad you good to meet you. So I'm going to give you a little backstory because a lot of you, or some of you, are new to positions. I want to make sure you have all the information of where we're coming from, what we're doing currently for the next 4 days of this school year, and where we're going in the future. So with Career Pathways, that's my information, mission statement. I'm not going to read that all to you. You probably have access to all this. But it started way back in 2018. And when Dr. Scheid asked me to put a little presentation on about the history of the program, I was kind of astounded. It's been 6 years that we've been working on this. And it all started with the Bucks County IU. They brought in NC3T, which is an organization that promotes career pathways in the high school setting. And they were a great organization to help us get organized and off the ground. Then we were at the PDE's conference later that year. Then we took the trip to Nashville, and in Nashville, they have an academy set up, so the whole city, school-wide city, has different academies highlighted in each one of their high schools. Kids at a very, very early age sign up like, I want to be in the finance academy, or I want to be in the science academy, or whatever academy they choose. I think they were in early middle school, 6th grade. And then, of course, they're able to move from academy to academy. But if they were in the science academy, they went to this particular high school, and the busing and the situation in the city, they all worked that out. But the great thing that we pulled out of that conference was that students were ready earlier to start thinking about their future than we may have been prepared for. Students in 7th and 8th grade, they were making those choices and really honing in on what they're good at and what their interests were, and pursuing careers and exploring careers in that option. So we're like, we can certainly do that. We have a great population here. And I think we're all impressed by their ambassadors they had there, which were a student-run program. And these ambassadors were amazing students. And Nashville isn't, the city itself is not an affluent town at all. So we were super impressed with these kids who were able to present and really lead this program. So that's where we all got that aha moment of like, we've got to do this going forward. So we developed the portrait of the graduate, what we want our graduates to look like when they leave our doors here. We spent some time brainstorming. I think the committee was working on it for a long time. And we really hammered that out to say this is what we want our kids to be able to do, what they should look like when they leave us. So that was a great process for us. Then we started developing a program of studies, and that was a process that we undertook for quite some time, fine-tuning that as well. Then the pandemic happens, of course, and it just throws everything into array here. So, but one of the nice things prior to that occurring was in January, we hosted right here a panel discussion. We brought in 8 professionals across all the different career pathway programs. And we sort of were able to ask them questions about what does it look like if we had a student interested in a career. And they were able to give us feedback of what they would like to see future employees look like, what they look for in new hires, things like that. So we've really learned a lot in that panel discussion and really guided what we're looking for. And it came down to the experiences. They just felt, those professionals felt that the kids can get out and experience what a career looks like, either through a job shadow, a site visit, or a mentor program. That really launched their careers forward as far as giving them a better understanding of the education experience and what they really needed to do to pursue that career. So that was a great opportunity for us.
Can I interject something here?
Please.
Because the other really aha with us was that whole panel really talked about the value of soft skills. So showing up on time. They talked about courteous, like being courteous to other people, being able to work in a group. So it was really, that Those comments influenced our portrait of graduate. Because then we said, well, these are also the skills that students need, not just I'm going in to experience that, but they both were equally important.
And that's, we've had workshops on those soft skills presented by various HR departments in the area, sort of giving them these interview skills or body language, what to say, what not to say, so those types of skills are developed a little bit. So it really opened up an opportunity for us to sort of rely on our local resources to sort of help those students. I can sit there and talk to them before they go on a job shadow, I'm like, how you gonna dress, what are you gonna say, you know, all that kind of stuff, but when the professional comes to them and says it seems to stick a little bit better, so I always enjoy bringing them in and explaining why that's important firsthand. So 2021, we had a great year where we were able to approve the Pathways course. If you're now familiar with the Pathway course, that is an umbrella opportunity for students. It really is to allow them to explore their career options throughout their time in high school. So to receive that half credit, they're required to complete so many guest speaker events. We bring them in, 2-3 times a month. They need to attend so many of those in their 4 years. They have to go on a certain number of site visits at different professional locations, complete job shadows and a mentor program. And if they go through all that, there's a career research program in there as well. Then they can earn that half credit. So it really shows that they're dedicated. And they don't have to start as a freshman. They can finish it usually within a year and a half is probably the shortest. We like them to start as a freshman with the career exploration and then work their way up to the mentorship program. But they're able, if they're a transfer new to the district and let's say they're going to be a sophomore, they're not behind. They still have time to accomplish that if it's something they wish.
That's not like a class.
It's not a physical
They're
class.
just doing these certain things.
Correct, yeah, so we keep track of it in the career counseling office, and then that way we monitor their attendance and all the opportunities they're taking advantage of. They get a little checklist, they get to keep theirs as well, with what they need to do and make sure they're meeting the criteria. So it's more to sort of introduce them to the Pathways program if they don't really have a direction quite yet. If they're like, I'm gonna be a lawyer. All right, great, we'll give you all these opportunities, you can do what you like, you may not need this half credit, but some kids may be looking for that extra half credit to sort of, make graduation a reality sometimes. So it gives us that flexibility to sort of give them that experience and that education and that exploration, but still giving them some reward for it.
Yeah, helps on college applications too.
Yes,
So
yeah.
very important.
Absolutely. So that's where this is the year I sort of stepped in as the part-time coordinator. So I would teach 3 classes out of the 5, and then the other 2 would be dedicated to this program here. And we piloted the first 45 students working with the Performing Arts Department, which was just absolutely fantastic.
They're graduating tomorrow.
Yes, they are graduating tomorrow. So the Performing Arts Department was very excited about the program. We brought in sound techs and gig masters, people who book these types of musical performing arts events, and we had somebody from the Band Music Center come up and this is how we put together a concert. It was a really cool opportunity. They held their own coffee house after they got some training. We had the coffee house in the cafeteria. You remember that? Right, you were there. And they got to set up a whole stage, all the equipment, sound, everything, lighting. It was a really cool experience for the kids to put their knowledge to the test. And we had a couple of professionals come in and help them make sure it all worked properly, because we didn't want to open up the coffee house and not be able to play music. So that was kind of cool. So the reason we went with the pilot program, it was just, this is our first real experiment into the program, and we wanted to make sure we had protocols and procedures in place. So this allowed us, a small group of students, to really fine tune the program. Their feedback was essential to our future success going forward. We really had a lot of success with that program, the pilot program. Those kids were very excited about it. And it sort of led to finalizing the other pathways you see there. So we started with the arts and communication, because that's who the group of kids we were working with primarily. And then we expanded it to the other 4 pathways: science and health, business and finance, and the others you see there. We started expanded into the middle schools. 2022. So we went down to the middle schools, did the presentations to the 8th grade classes at each middle school, sort of just saying, hey, this is what you're gonna see. Your first day of high school, I'll be one of the people you're gonna talk to first. And we're gonna talk about careers, and you're not gonna know what you're gonna wanna be when you grow up, but that's okay. We're gonna figure it out together. So I really wanted them to sort of get that iceberg cracked a little bit, so that way we can break down any preconceptions that they may have about, oh, I don't know what I wanna be when I grow up, and we can sort of work with them from there. We also implemented the Rams Career Day, so during our Rams days, we would select, because the activity day was the third of the 3, so you had 2 academic Rams days, and the third was an activity one. On that activity Rams day, we would bring in 5, 10, 15 professionals, and kids could sign up and go see what they had all to offer. So that was a great way to bring the professionals into the school, and kids could meet them face to face in smaller groups. We did larger presentations, but when you get them too large, kids won't ask questions. So we wanted them to be a little bit more intimate, 8, 10, 15 kids, and that way they could really find out the information they really wanted to. So that was a real success for us. We're going to see how it looks next year with the block schedule, which is exciting stuff for us. We also developed the Workforce Partners Advisory Council. So here's a small group of local workforce partners we work with. Sort of say, this is what we're doing. Does it make sense for your type of business? Or what could we do better to help prepare employees for the future? So they're sort of my sounding board, and they sort of say, hey, you know what, you may want to do more of this, or maybe a little bit of that, less of that. So they're a great resource for me to sort of, hey, thinking about doing this, would you have any interest? And so far, everybody's like, yes, we have an interest. No one has turned us down yet, so which is good. We did have the town hall in December, and this was really geared towards informing parents of what we had to offer this program to their students. We worked with the Upper Bucks Technical School. They came and did a presentation as well about what they offer, because they have career pathways already established. They work with professional plumbers and welders, et cetera, and auto techs. So we sort of just combined forces and were able to provide that resource to parents if they had questions. This year, there's the coffee house actually did run in January. We planned most of it the fall before. We had our first Women in the Workforce. We just finished our second this year. Dr. Schott was our first guest speaker, keynote speaker.
That was last year. This year was really good too.
Yeah, so we're getting good at it now, which is a great opportunity. We bring a lot of these professional, women in the workforce, and the idea is for students to see that they can see themselves in that role. We have brain surgeons here, vice presidents of finance companies, and it's an opportunity to like, oh, I can do that. And absolutely, our answer is, yeah, absolutely you can. So we want to make sure we foster that as much as possible. A lot of calls, a lot of emails. I work with a young lady named Chloe Kircher, if you don't know who she is. She is outstanding for this program. She's at Solder. Her parents work at Solder. Her mom works at Solder too. So they've been a great resource as well. So it's a team effort. It's quite a bit of work. It's to locate these people, clear their schedules, make sure they're available certain times. So we learned from our first year to our next year to sort of make the time available a little bit more, so that if they can't make it at 8 o'clock, because it's sort of professional, 8 a.m. start time, it's a little early sometimes. But for us, we're here already an hour, so it's not a big work, right? So we've learned. So we're growing that, hopefully continue in the future. We had a first Career Expo, which is our career fair, last April, which was a huge success. And again, it was our first time doing it. We learned a lot. Our professionals who were all here hosting students were very helpful in saying, maybe do this next year, or try this. So we made some changes to it this year, this past April, and I think it was a great success. The feedback was all extremely positive from the professionals, the students loved it. So it was really, we try to bring in professionals from each of the 5 career pathways, so that way it's not all dominated by, St. Luke's and Grandview, but they are a large part of our area, so they do have a presence. So that way there's something for everybody, which is kind of nice. We introduced the basic fire academy certification through this program. So students who go through the basic level of fire protection and firefighting, they could receive credit here at the high school as well. So if they complete that 16-week program and get all their certifications through whatever fire company they're working with, we will recognize that as hard work and, for their future and give them credit accordingly. So that's an aspect as well. Full-time coordinator position was created, so I stepped out of the classroom into this role full-time to sort of really foster our relationship with our community. A lot of that relationship just blossomed. Somebody heard about the program, told a friend, and now, I get X amount of emails every day saying, hey, I heard about this, how do I become part of it? Small businesses all the way up to, Air Products, very large companies. So we're looking to continue that growth and offering, the more offerings we have for students, I think the more we can really touch base with them and sort of give them that guidance we want them to portray that portrait of our graduate that's prepared and ready to go out. We had the resume writing shop, we had interview skills, I think it was to help them with the interview, the soft skills. So we transitioned away from the Rams career day because we knew that the block scheduling was being prepared and approved. So we wanted to sort of get away from that to sort of see what it looked like. So what we do is we have these hot sessions where I'll bring somebody in for respiratory care, from one emergency or something like that. And they'll do a presentation for about 45 minutes in the library, and the kids sign up and come do that presentation. So they have worked really well transitioning from that activity period that we have to something that would work in the block schedule for us. So it allows us to give us that flexibility, still bringing professionals in. The kids responded really well. Actually, our attendance had increased when we made that transition, which was kind of nice. And the employers are very excited about it as well, because they get to come into a group of kids who really want to hear what they have to say. So that worked out well for us as well. And now A through Z is available to all of our students, which we're very excited about, that any student along that spectrum from guest speakers all the way up to the mentorship, kids can jump in and out at their leisure. If they want more of something else, we give them more whatever they desire. So this year that flexibility really opened up with the coordinator position for us, so that way you're able to sort of manage and track. Because there's a lot of data out there that we generate through kids with the attendance office or their grade level principal or case manager. They all have to be aware of what's going on when the kid goes out for, or a student goes out for a job shadow or a mentor program. So tracking all that is sometimes logistic fun, but it happens, which is good. So some numbers, I'm an accountant by trade, so numbers are my thing. You'll sort of see the first column's a little small there. That's where we focus on student role in the Canvas course. So we have a Canvas course, and the purpose of the Canvas course is where they get to engage initially with these professionals. So if I have a forensic scientist coming into the school to do a guest speaker series, and they're like, hey, I want to be a part of that, well, you got to go through the Canvas course. You have to be engaged in that process. Reason number one, it allows me to track who they are and gives me their school email address, so that way I can communicate with the student. Hey, how did you like that forensic scientist? What would you like to see more of? What are you looking for in the future, and sort of develop that opportunity. The idea is for them to come into the college and career center, sit down in front of me, and then I'm able to really, ask some pointed questions to say what are you looking for out of this program. So that's ultimately our gauge right there. We do have a nice increase. I'd like to get to be about 25% of the school next year is my goal. So we're looking around 600 hopefully. Which may not be a huge number comparatively, but that will be our 4th year working with kids, and I think that'll be a super goal for us to achieve for. So, but you can also see the number of events has increased from 5 to 66 total events. So we try to have 3 to 4 events a month minimum, so that way we're able to really offer what the kids are looking for. So if they want to go medical, or they want to go finance, or they want to go architecture, we have something for them at any given time. So, and we started to see some repeat business, which is kind of nice. So we took a field trip to the Jefferson Biomedical Engineering Lab in the fall, and they were so excited to see our kids, they're like, can we do it again this spring? And I said, absolutely, because I know kids are dying to get down there. I can only take 25, so I'm seeing that more and more often. Penn Community Bank has been, you know, a multiple opportunity for our kids too. Like, we would send them down there for 4 or 5 hours, and like, can you send another group of kids? Absolutely, we love them. So that's what I'm starting to see is these multiple interactions with these the workforce partners for us, so which is great. That's only going to drive the program further. One of the most exciting ones that we're all closely tied to is the new teacher pathway. So these are the students who want to be teachers. And we have the resources here in our community, right in this building, to sort of launch that for them. It's a great opportunity for students to sort of get to see what teaching is going to be like. And we send them out to just observe first, just to get their legs sitting, fly on the wall, what happens. They've all gone through school, so they know, but it's different when you sit behind the big desk, right? So the goal is to get that observation down once or twice, and then working with that cooperative teacher, maybe you develop a math lesson or a science lesson or something, and that student will deliver it to a small group of students at that level. It sort of gives them that opportunity to prepare what goes into a lesson, how do you plan an activity, what do you do when the kids aren't interested and they're distracted type of thing. And it's great, the feedback that comes back from that is like, you know, teaching 4th grade is a lot harder than I thought, right? And they have that aha moment, like this is going to be what it's going to be. Somebody who's been through the educational process, you go through 3.5 years of schooling, then that last semester you do your student teaching. That sometimes your first time in front of the class, and that can be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this anymore. And I've had student teachers who, I was their cooperative teacher, say, I'm not teaching anymore because it's too hard. It's not what I thought. To waste all that schooling is a shame. So our goal is to sort of get them out there now through this program and sort of develop that, like, hey, you sure you want to do this, right? It's, you know, have the high shoes and white noses and all that kind of stuff, right? So through our dual enrollment program, we're offering child development 2, I think next year, right? Will be a dual enrollment program, so kids will be able to earn credit here at Penn Ridge as well as Bucks. So they'll be able to sort of be immersed with that nursery school and sort of create lessons, make the snacks, do all the things that go into it before they decide they want to go to college for.
So then they potentially get the half credit for the pathway and then the credit for like another elective course. Is there any other, besides this dual enrollment course, is there any other dual enrollment courses with the other pathways? Or?
Well, we have other dual enrollment courses,
Right.
absolutely.
But like
Well, within the pathway.
within the pathways.
Yeah, so we have classes like Accounting 2 would be in the finance. Through Wedded. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so.
Yeah, we should pitch that out there more too, I know that. It's like
Yeah,
good.
it's the dual enrollment program is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, we can definitely love to grow
And we're
that.
having more teachers go through that process to be the certified teacher teaching for PIT,
Mhm.
yeah, the courses through PIT.
Yeah.
So.
Is there anywhere on our website a list of our dual enrollment classes?
We're in the program studies.
Yes.
So you'll be able to see.
Lift them on and just put them on separate.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just like a separate
Like,
list
or-
somewhere.
Yeah, we can do that.
I know that last year we did a presentation with the 7 that we had at that time.
Yes.
Parent presentation.
We have one.
Yeah. So we had some stats that are nice. Students complete the job shadows down at the elementary schools, which is kind of nice. Or North Middle schools are a great one for us because they switch to have to walk. So it's kind of nice. We don't have to drive them anywhere.
And you know, I do want to just put a plug in. When the kids go back, they typically pick their own elementary
Oh,
school,
yes.
and then everybody's all
Yes.
excited because they come back and they learn grass. So.
Yeah, which is very good. All the schools have been very welcoming, and the kids do all the contact. Like, I will give them the contact information of the school, the principal, and they set up the email, they set up the meeting, they meet with the teacher, they do all the work on their end. This is, you know, we really want to encourage them. This isn't what you want to do, this is what you have to do. So, we definitely want to encourage that through all our job shadows. Give them the initial contact information, they do the reaching out. Right? There's no way I could reach out for 400 kids that'd be there, talk, do all that. I will proofread their emails, I'll say, hey, type up your email, bring it in, I'll look over if you want to and help you tweak it a little bit, but, you know, they do all the legwork with which saves us a lot of effort in the college career center. So moving forward for next school year, we have a couple things that we'd like to bring on board. The Classroom Connections is pretty high on the list, where we'll bring in the professionals. I was speaking with Mr. Maris about this program, where we have a professional working with a class. For example, we have maybe our finance classes, our personal finance classes will work with somebody in finance, and they'll develop a retirement program for a client based upon some parameters, their age, salary and all this, kids and family and mortgage and all that. So we'll give them sort of a problem or an example, and they'll work through it with the professional, and then maybe in 2 weeks the professional will come back to the class. Hey, what was your proposal? What would you propose this family do? Maybe we have somebody in the architecture or construction management area come and say, look, you want to build a building, using your CAD and your experience there, how would you make the structure so that it meets these variances and the planning and requirements for the clients? So we sort of want to bring that connection. More than just a guest speaker, sort of just an opportunity for the professional to really work with the kids, and the kids get to solve real world problems, which would be really nice to sort of give them that hands-on experience.
If I may, Mr. Dyer and I have had several meetings since I've arrived, and I've been very impressed with the Pathways program here. And what he's talking about right now is the possibility of having a micro internship program. So when you partner with somebody in an industry, they would go to a certain class and again introduce themselves, what they do for a living, and then come up with a real scenario. Maybe the students can go on a field trip. This wouldn't be like one time they go visit this firm or wherever, and then just really develop that relationship. So I would anticipate we're going to see a large push of us trying to identify folks in our community, graduates who would be willing to give time. And as Mr. Dyer shared during his presentation, companies and firms are dying to give back, and they'll sponsor. I know in a previous district where I was employed, we had a very robust partnership with different firms, and they would just pay for the transportation and lunches and all the tours to help, in some cases, technical equipment to help our kids. And I think I think we're on the right trajectory here. I appreciate your good work here. And recently I had contact with a parent who shared that her daughter wants to be a teacher. I said, let me see if I can get an observation. Unbeknownst to me, we already had this teacher pathway program, and but it all worked out. And as you know, there's a teacher shortage right now. So if we can get a pipeline here at Penn Ridge where, who knows, maybe if one of our graduates, they make it through our program, we guarantee an interview in the future. Not guarantee a job, but just guarantee an interview. And I think that's really capturing the essence of a Pathways program. I've been out on some site visits with a community member at the airport and a couple of other places where we're trying to just forge some partnerships behind the scenes. And it's a very, very solid program, and I just see so much growth opportunity here as well. Thank you.
No, thank you. And the support is fantastic to grow the program. But who knows we want to get to that 25% next year and develop the new classroom connections, etc. But the goal is still the same as it was back in 2018. How do we get our kids ready for what they're doing next? Right? And it comes down to having that conversation. Sometimes you just want to talk about it. And one of the questions I ask is like, well, where are you in the conversation with your parents? And they're like, I haven't told you. I'm like, okay, well, let's bring them on board because they're the in-house professionals here. They know you better than anybody. So, having that initial conversation with the kids is really where, we really have it on. Whether it's medical or finance or architecture or whatever it's going to be, that is what it is. When it's getting to talk about their future, and sort of finding out like, oh, I wouldn't get a physical therapist, so you need your doctorate in that. Oh, I do? Okay, so that's 6 to 8 years of program you have to complete. So the conversations is really where our money's made, to say, where these kids really get to develop what they want. And that's ultimately what satisfies, except the kid walks out, like, all right, this is really cool. We'll work out the job shows eventually, but getting them to have that conversation first is very important for us. So So, contact if anybody's sharing this, any questions you have for me for the program?
I do have a question.
Yes.
So if this isn't a course, how does it fit into the kids' schedule? Like, let's say you're offering, a speaker, but the child, at that time, the child has a class. How does that all work out?
So they'll receive a pass from our office to get them into the guest speaker. They'll be excused. And obviously, we tell them if you have a test or a project presentation that you can't miss in class, then obviously don't miss that. The teachers are fully aware. We send out an attendance list of who was there, so they know who was attending that program. So there is that's the ownership the kids have to take. They still responsible for any work they miss for that 45 minutes. So they have to make sure they have that completed on the back end for that opportunity. Like, Pathways is an excuse not to get the work done, so we want to make sure they're fully aware of that. So they would this short period, and we're running block scheduling next year, so that's going to be about half the period. So they would return to that class for that. Same thing with they do a site visit or do a field trip, they're going to miss classes, but they'll have their parents sign off on that permission form, the teachers will sign off on the permission form, etc.
And that's all rolled through Canvas, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the Canvas is where it starts. That way I'm able to capture who they are and their contact information so that then they're going to fill out some information that they're interested in. So I know if they're of medical interest and we have an opportunity to rise, I can send it to those kids who have expressed interest in medical or science or whatnot.
And they can always, it's like if they try one medical and then they want to try something, so they can.
Absolutely, yeah, there's no penalty. So if they go and complete half of this stuff in the science world, or want to go to the social studies or another avenue, then there's no loss of credit at all. It all counts towards their career exploration opportunities. So yeah, they can try them all. Absolutely, we don't want them pigeonholed. When I meet with the 8th grade class, I tell them, listen, this is a forever decision. This is for the next 3 or 4 months, and then we can change and pivot however we need to. Yeah, because we don't want them to feel locked into them, because then they won't try anything else. We've had multiple students go out and try things and come back. They've gone to Grandview and they're like, you know what, I don't like blood, I want to be a nurse. Now she's studying to be a radiologist, so which is great. She's still in the medical field, but she just finished her first year in radiology school, so that's fantastic. Not a nurse, but still doing what she does. So.
And they can enroll at any time?
Anytime. Yep, we had a couple of seniors come at the end of the year this year. Like, hey, can I get a job shadow? Oh my God. What's your name? Yeah, anytime. No one gets turned away. At all.
Right. Thank you.
So, thank you.
I was actually going to ask the question you already answered around like how do we scoop up some of these kids if they are interested in teaching, how can we entice them? But another question I have, because it might not be Career Pathways that always does this, but having a daughter who's graduating right now, going through the college selection, career selection process, whether it's college or not, is there something that if say you're talking to someone who's in the nursing field or the teaching field, that there's an honest evaluation of like, this is starting salary, average starting salary of a teacher. So if you're graduating, if you're going to a college that is $60,000 a year and you're graduating with $100,000 of debt,
Yep.
and you're starting, like
That's
those
all
sort of
part
components to
our,
it.
our meetings with the students.
Yeah.
It may not be the initial first time I meet with them, but if I meet with a student, I'll say, hey, listen, this is what you're doing over the course of the next two weeks. And I'll give them labor and statistics from the government's websites. This is what that career field is going to generate for you. This is the education you're going to require, and the payment of that education is going to cost this much. This is what you can expect on the back end. Absolutely. And if they go through the Career Pathways course, that first career exploration project, they have to explore 3 different careers minimum and find out all that demographic information about that career. So when they express to me within that first meeting that they're interested in finance or science or whatever, I will give them that information via email. That's why I'm collected so I can share with them. And it's literally just a link that they're going to click on and they can read through everything they want to know about that particular career, what the work environment's going to look like, what their typical day is going to be. So that's all part of that initial meeting that they get to discover all that information at their disposal.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of viewing of like parents, and you're like, oh, I like what that parent does, but that's,
Yeah.
we're like 30 years into our career.
Yes,
You're like, you weren't making this when you started, sort of thing, and
this is true.
I think the
And the nice
reality
thing is
checks are
that
really important.
If the parent is an observer
Yeah.
on the student's Canvas course, and that student is enrolled in the Career Pathways Canvas course, the parents get to see all that as well.
Great.
And there's resources on the website that Mr. Thomas maintains for us, thank you, Mr. Thomas, as well as the Canvas page, for all that background research that they have access to. So, little videos about that particular industry, and all the demographic stuff as well, so,
Yeah, I like this. This is very
Or,
helpful.
yeah, they get sometimes overwhelmed by all of it, because they're like, maybe this or this, and I send them the information, they're like, oh, that's a lot of information. So, like, more's better.
It's all a lot of work though, and that's I think is the reality. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what path you take,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's
It's-
nothing's handed to you. So, okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Everybody to learn everything we've been doing.
Yeah, I thought it would be a great opportunity to share. If you have questions, if you have questions, please, the contact information's there. Answer any questions.
What you gonna do now?
It's more a bicep tendon. I wish I had a big story.
It's all right, we'll work on making one up later.
We're maxing out.
Maxing out, there you go, thank you. I'll pick up patio furniture. Stuck together.
You can come up with that.
You can't now, you just said.
The whole world.
Stick with that.
All right, maybe it didn't pick up the audio, it's okay.
Okay, good. Beautiful.
Next up, Mrs. Vitale with Elementary Social Studies Changes in Atlas.
Okay. Hi,
Hi.
thank you for having me. So I have for you the changes that were made in Atlas based on when we were here before. There were some adjustments that were needed to be made, just slight adjustments to units in Atlas, words in Atlas, standards. What I did was very minimal, so it looks like a lot when you first look at this document. It looks like a lot of words on the page, but really there's not a whole lot of changes to be made. I made additions to standards in some of the units, and I won't go over every single one of them. I know that you guys some of you are going to be heading out. So for example, grade 2, I changed the title from our school, our town, our country to our school and town. So it's little changes like that, and then I removed a standard because there were either too many standards or the standard was already being covered in another unit. So I did make some adjustments that way. One I did want to point out, and I guess I can't. Oh, there we go. Was grade 3. There were, let me get a little bigger. So I changed the title from Colonial America to United States Government and Economics. And I added a standard, PA Standard 5.1.3.D, which is identifying key ideas about government. And it makes the addition of Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Pennsylvania Constitution, because that wasn't previously in there. I also added identifying the roles of the 3 branches of government and identifying personal rights and responsibilities. I added three branches of government to the content because that was not previously in that content for Unit 3, that were somewhere else. So I put it in that unit so that it matched with the resource. And I added civic engagement also to that content for Unit 3, Grade 3. And then I have no change for Grade 4, Unit 1. I changed the title of Unit 2 from European Exploration to United States History, Government, and Economics. European Exploration is incorporated in that. Within that where it says United States History, it is incorporated into that section of the content. It just wasn't, we were teaching more than just European exploration, so the title would not have been correct because we are going to be teaching government economics, so I thought it was important to reflect that in the title. Unit 3, I changed the title from Early Settlements to the Regions of the United States, still covering the same material. It's just a broader topic added another standard, 8.4.c, explained how continuity and change in world history have influenced personal development and identity. Grade 5, Unit 1, I changed the title from Triangle Trade and Slavery to Age of Exploration to Colonies, because that unit is a lot broader and larger than just Triangle Trade and Slavery. If you see there, it goes from a very large, it's a very large chunk of history. Age of Exploration to Colonies is a large chunk of history, and within that is the Triangle Trade and Slavery. It's just not solely Triangle Trade and Slavery. And then we added colonies in conflict to the content. Because of that, there was like a domino effect with a lot of these, some of these additions and maneuvers around. I had to then change a couple things, and I thought instead of having the Declaration of Independence at the end of 5th grade, I bumped it up a unit to Unit 2, and I added the Constitution to Unit 3, because when they get to 8th grade, they're going to start there. They're not going to start there, they will end there. But I wanted them to have a touch of the Constitution before they even got to 8th grade. So I didn't want them to not have any exposure to it. So it's in the resource that we adopted, the SAVIS resource. So that's why I just changed around the units at the end.
Can I ask real quick?
Yeah.
What extra stuff is in, like, if you scroll down, sorry. What are the extra things that are part of Age of Exploration to Colonies?
Extra as in?
On top of, like, the Triangle Trade and Slavery.
So in 5th grade, they'll be learning about the exploration of the United States from Europe. So Columbus, Hudson, Da Gama, all of the explorers that you study as an elementary school student. They do it currently in 5th grade. They do a big project at the end of the year, but they focus mostly on the Age of Exploration. This is taking it further up to the colonies, and so covering a little bit more material than they're used to in 5th grade. And then once the colonies are established, then moving on to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I didn't answer your
Well, no,
question.
I think you might have. So the Triangle Trade and Slavery is still in there. Though.
Yes.
Okay, it's just like, that's what was my question.
Yeah, it comes after the Age of Exploration. Yeah, it's just not, I thought that title was misleading, that would be the only thing we're teaching, but it's not.
Okay.
Any other questions? And we have good news for the civics exam.
Great news.
Which they just took.
Yeah, my son just took it.
Yeah, they just took
He
it.
did, yep.
That was great news.
That's great.
They took it, we did it a little bit differently this year. They took it on Linkit, which is a testing platform that we use, a data platform that we use, and wanted to try it out. I wasn't sure exactly how it would go. The teachers were trained on Linkit because they had never used it to administer an assessment before. So we had Lincoln train them, and we ran through it. We did a kind of a test to make sure that all of the kids could get in. And there was a button on their key, so they just click one button. It takes them right to the test. And they did excellently. As you can see here, every single student that took the test in 8th grade passed. It's the first year that we've had every single student pass. It's a 14. It's a 14% increase from 2022 and a 6% increase from last year. We're really excited that they did as well as they did. The teachers should be very happy with the performance of their students.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you, all of our teachers and our kids for taking this exam seriously. And that's a first for me, seeing 100%.
I know, it's great.
And the perfects went up too.
Yeah.
They certainly did.
Yeah.
We usually bring those kids and honor them at a board meeting.
That's in the works. Mr. Thomas.
It is.
Yes.
It'd be a big
Spoiler
group,
alert.
right? Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Yep.
That's the first goal we can improve.
I know, that's why I thought,
Give them a perfect score.
I'm asking asking for your permission to get a 95.
So then with,
That's it.
with the changes and, like still I know like it's being developed in Atlas, when will that, cause this is good update, this is not something that will be pushed to a board meeting?
No.
Right, so when will that be, that we look at like the Atlas,
We
the
are- we-
courses, when will that be? Like first through
It's already
fifth?
approved, yeah, they're already
Right.
approved.
But I thought then we had to go back and see if everything's being added, like the resources,
This is where, there was nothing added or changed.
for like for second and fourth grade, they're not in there right now?
No, they are.
I don't see them. Can you?
Yeah, it's hard to,
It's a different.
it's a
When you
different
go to,
title,
like,
it's hard to
curriculum.
find them. It's grade 1 and then in parentheses 24-25 rollout.
Right. But, I mean, I'll pop it up,
Okay.
maybe if you could just show me, that'd be great,
Sure.
because I don't see it. And are they, so that one time I looked at it and then other things were added?
Everything should be finished, with the exception of a few supplemental resources that we haven't put onto resources yet.
Yeah, I just wanna see first grade.
Yeah, I can come over and
Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
That'd be perfect.
Are you ready to we continue to move forward? Okay.
Okay, this one's-
All right, so literacy development with Dr. Kathy Scheid and Mrs. Sarah Raper.
So, we were asked to talk about our literacy program, in particular at the elementary school, because we've made significant changes. And I think it's really important that everybody sees the big picture here. This is year 10 that we have been working on the literacy development. This is not easy. When I first came here 10 years ago, we had a program called Reading Street. And our kids really weren't being developed as critical readers or thinkers or writers, and Sarah remembers all this, right? So we worked with the IU, they did a study of our program, we really took the time to figure this out. So some of you will remember, some of you may not. We started out with being a writer because what the data told us was our biggest weakness was writing. So we added that to the program. But this has evolved into what we both care very deeply about. This is an exemplary program for our students. It has every component, right? It's an efficacious program. We have data to prove that it works. So we wanted to kind of give you the components of it, and then Sarah really can talk to you about how this is implemented in our elementary programs, in our schools, and the data then to say why we have made the decision to add foundations to second grade. So that really was the question. Why are we adding foundations to second grade? This is kind of a long story to get to that. So we both are reading specialists that's what we did. So we both have literacy background. We just wanted to talk about what are all of the components. Early literacy skills are critical. The brain does not naturally learn how to read. The brain naturally learns language. You have to teach the brain to read. So that's where this comes from. So early literacy skills in the primary grades, as you all know, because you have children, letter recognition, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocab development, comprehension, and writing. So all of these components work together to really make sure that we are developing solid readers and reach our goal. Because our goal in this district has been that every student will be a proficient reader by the end of grade 3, and that's a very ambitious goal. We get closer and closer each year. So Sarah will talk to you about loop, the rope.
This is just a visual, I think that's very helpful. So these are the components of what we call the reading rope, Scarborough's reading rope. There's language comprehension, and there's 5 elements of that delineated there. And then there's a separate piece, which is word recognition. And you have to acquire all of those things in isolation and then start to, as you see the rope weaving together, as your word recognition becomes increasingly automatic and you are gaining that language comprehension, that's your strategic end of your rope, and those things come together and you become a fluent, skilled reader, which we want that rope to start tangling, right? In our early K1, 2, as we're getting those foundational skills, but we want to be tangled when we hit 3, 4, 5, which is what we'll talk about as we continue through. So this visual is helpful, you'll see it later, I'm gonna assign it to the programming that we have, in addition.
So the next slide really is about phonemic awareness, and that's not phonics. Phonemic awareness are the sounds you hear. And if you, one of the critical skill that you can tell from an early reader is if they can or cannot manipulate individual sounds and words. That means like this. Tell me what slot is without the sound. And if kids can say side, you know they hear individual sounds. Kids who struggle with not being able to manipulate the sounds, typically that's who you're going to keep your eye on. So there are kinds of assessments that you do with kids. That's the difference between sound symbol relationships with phonics, which is T says T. So that's the difference. And then phonics is actually your sound symbol correspondence, and all of our kindergartners do that. But we really like to start with sounds. Kids should know how to rhyme. If your little preschooler can't rhyme, that's something you need to work on. Rhyming, because it's the sounds you hear, words that are prerequisites to sound and symbol relationships. And then, of course, as our little ones are K1 and 2, they move on, they progress, they move from learning to reading to learn, they become more sophisticated learners. That's why every time we come up here and we're talking about a different program, we talk about critical skills and critical thinking skills, critical reading skills, critical writing skills. So that's why it's an imperative that by grade 3 I can read fluently. Because if my brain has to spend all that time on trying to decode words, I'm not going to get to be able to think like you want me to, because I'm so burdened by that. That's why reading disabilities are really hard for kids. So this is just a reiteration of the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics, and then we build those skills. Vocabulary is so important. There are studies out there that have really indicated that children, babies, infants, 1, 2, 3 years old need to hear a lot of language. The kids who don't have such a deficit coming into school, vocabulary development is important. And then what's interesting is when kids do struggle, they're struggling readers, they can't decode, they can't hear the sounds, typically their language comprehension actually is higher. So they'll understand the words they're hearing if they've heard that, if parents have read to them and they hear stories. That will help them compensate for those kinds of skills. So the more you talk to kids, the more you read to kids as little kids, it really, I mean, the research is out there, it's clear. It really is important. And then I'll just, the last one, the text analysis. That has been highlighted in the PSSAs now for a long time. You might hear TDA, text-dependent analysis, here often. And that really is an important skill. So some people say, oh, the PSSAs, they're not important. Yes, they are. They really do make sure that kids understand how to do that. That I can read multiple texts. I can analyze them. I can break them apart. I can synthesize them. I can tell you what's in common. I can tell you what's different. They're important skills as an adult. So that is really what we are developing through this program. So we're teaching the kids how to decode, encode. Encode just means I can spell. So we're teaching them those skills. But ultimately, we're teaching them to be fluent so that they can get to these skills. So that's how our reading program moves. It moves in the direction from your basic skills into high-level reading and writing, because reading and writing are married. They're married skills. If you want a strong reader, get them to write more, and vice versa. So the writing really was a deficit in this district, and it isn't anymore. And you know how we know too? Because we started at the elementary level, and now our sixth grade teachers are saying, oh, they are seeing that impact. That they can take the kids and move them higher. We want them to achieve higher. We want it to be more rigorous, and then you're able to do that if you provide direct instruction that way. Fluency, we really work hard on that, and that's if you want a student to be more fluent, they're kind of choppy. You know, you can have them do repeated repeated readings and things like that. So when we talk about an intervention period, if I can decode but I'm kind of choppy, I want to be more fluent, I'm going to listen to a model who is a fluent reader, and then I'm going to repeat that and practice that until I become fluent. So I really kind of put that one in there to just show you an example of, we talk about interventions all the time. That's what we need. We'll provide you with extra practice if you need it in fluency development. And then Mrs. Raver will talk about how we actually program in classrooms.
So I took the Scarborough reading rope that I had talked to you before, and I inserted our base programming that every student receives in Penn Ridge and kind of put it in between and tried to match it. So all of our programs, Making Meaning, Being a Writer, Words Their Way, shared reading that we've implemented in K-1-2, our sight word, Penn Ridge sight words that we've implemented in K-1-2, as well as foundations, which we have in K-1 and will expand to 2 next year, all work together and meet all of the needs of the reading rope, all the language comprehension, all the word recognition coming together. In particular, what I wanted to point out as we talk about expanding to foundations is that bottom half of the programming where you see all of those color-coded arrows to show that we are making sure that we've added multiple layers into our programming to ensure that our students' word recognition part of their rope is solid in K-1-2 so that they can progress quickly into that strategic and automatic part of the rope when we hit grade 3 and are at our goal of proficiency for our students. So the addition of foundations in first grade last year came out of the need of where we were seeing we were still having students who were not right where we needed them to be to get more automatic, and so that was affecting their language comprehension and how they can kind of do all of those things strategically, and so we brought that into grade 1, and we've seen immense growth in our first grade students, and we've also seen our teachers gain such a deep understanding of what needs to happen in instruction to get our students to have those understandings that they feel empowered to make those decisions based on the kids they have in front of them. Run more strategic small groups, provide more interventions based on all the things Dr. Shai just kind of went over. And so that's why we've seen such success in grade 1. We used it as an intervention model in grade 2 this year, so we identified groups of grade 2 students in all 7 buildings, and they received this foundations as an intervention so that we could continue to work on those areas, and we feel the best move is for all students in grade 2 to get that foundations instruction, as well as to empower our grade 2 teachers with the same information and understanding that our K-1 teachers have. So our primary programming is really rooted in all of what you see here.
And it's rooted in expertise, and there isn't anything more important when you're teaching reading is the expertise of the teacher. So it is that professional development that these second grade teachers will solidify that primary program. So.
And when you're saying foundations, it means all those things under word recognition.
It has all of those elements in it, yes.
Okay, so it's a program.
It is a name of a program.
Okay.
Very well said.
It's multi-sensory.
The blue thing means, the blue,
Yes.
that means they supply the language to.
Yes, so all elements of
Everything.
yes, are evident in each program.
It's so routine based, you have to go in and watch this. I welcome all of you to go into first grade classroom next year and watch the kids do this.
It's
Because
fantastic.
they have become
Yeah.
automatic.
I've seen it, like the difference between how my first graders had it and my fourth grader didn't. It's just how the diagrams and how they put it together, and it is amazing. I mean, they're reading chapter books, so and they're writing and they do their own little projects and bring it in. So it's wonderful. It's a really great program. I'm glad that it's going to second grade.
So I just wanted to kind of highlight what we're doing to support the programming, the professional development we're going to have next year specifically, as well as in the next couple slides, just to give you an idea of what we have already done in terms of professional learning for our teachers over the last 4 years that I have been involved in this role, so that you can kind of have an understanding of what our teachers have been empowered with. So in addition to what our programming is, our assessments and instruction are all aligned to give us additional data regarding how our students are doing and interacting with the programs, and give our teachers more information about how best to meet their individual and small group needs. We have enrichment and interventions. We have that as a third minute block, as you all are aware of, in the elementary. But on top of that, we also have reading specialists in all of our buildings who can pull small groups. They do push-in support. They run power hours for our kindergartners. We have instructional support teachers who also run small groups and push-in. We have special education programming that aligns to what we are looking at in the general ed curriculum, but it's other programming that might present the same information in a different way. We have co-taught instruction as well to support our students, and then we also have supplemental and complementary resources that our reading specialists and our classroom teachers can use that follow similar scope and sequence to our main programming. So Haggerty University Florida Institute.
Where's co-taught?
When a special education teacher and a general education teacher are teaching together in the same room. So all of these things are aligned so that even when we're providing enrichment, intervention, or supplemental instruction, we're all working towards the same goals. Nothing is contradictory. And we've worked really hard to make sure that that's true. The continued and responsive professional development that has been going on for next year, we have to provide professional development and structured literacy for all of our elementary teachers, as well as several other groups in the district from the state. And so we have that already in motion, which aligns to everything that we already kind of covered in this presentation, just further professional learning on understanding that. Our phonemic awareness and phonics professional learning will continue with our Wilson Foundations Level 2, that's our second grade teachers, as well as our first grade teachers who will be in year 3. But now that we're going to be in year 3, we can make some different instructional moves. Now that we have a solid understanding of the programming, how can we make this even better for the students that we have in front of us? Targeted small group instruction throughout our RELA programming during our intervention and enrichment period, as well as all of this data that we have in front of us, how are we collecting it, and then how are we using it. So those are the goals in RELA for next year. To give you an idea of programmatically what we have done over the last 4 years in terms of professional learning. Yeah, yes, more than that.
6, 8.
Everything on the left-hand side is how we've supported making meaning and being a writer, K through 5. I won't read it all to you, but we have an extensive relationship with the Center for Collaborative Classroom, or the publishers of these programs, and they have come in multiple times a year to work with our teachers, with our administration, collaboratively. We do lesson studies where we go in and watch our own teachers and our students engage in the program, and then we have reflective conversations about what we saw. We do learning walks where we've gone through all 7 elementary schools looking for what are the patterns that we're seeing, what are the quick things that we can all change, right? We need this anchor chart on every wall all the time, and we thought we only needed it for this unit. And these are quick things that we can all do and agree on, and continue to work through. The right-hand side programmatically works their way. We've had full program training for it was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 teachers. Now we will have that as our main program for 3, 4, 5. We use the data from that program to create our small groups and work on the encoding piece, the spelling piece, and vocabulary. And we've really worked on integrating the online resources for small groups so students have multiple ways to engage with that programming.
And spelling is important, at least from our perspective. It is important to teach students how to spell.
That's what I was gonna ask you, so is that, because I've noticed, for, just in a personal example, in 4th grade, like there's some teachers that teach spelling, like they have spelling tests, and others don't, which I think is very interesting. So I didn't know, is it something that the whole grade, okay.
It should be, because this Words Their Way program really does teach spelling patterns. That's what the whole thing's for. And it's just like this way, multiplication facts, you need to know them, right, and to use your calculator. The same thing is with spelling. And if you untrain brain to encode or to spell, that's going to have a long-term effect on your brain. So you really do need to make sure your brain is spell. I know it's hard for some kids, I get that. There's all different kinds of things that go on. But it's still really important and should be part of literacy.
Yes.
Programmatically for Wilson Foundations thus far, we've had full program training for all of our K1 teachers. We had intervention training for our grade 2 teachers this year, as well as special education. Next year we will expand that to full program training for all grade 2, as well as about 20 of our special education teachers are also going to go through the full program training with us. We've done individual classroom visits in every K1 and 2 classroom, utilizing foundations with our own team of reading specialists and teachers in the district, but also we've had a relationship with Wilson. Their literacy specialists have come in and worked alongside us as well. We've had model lessons, co-teaching. We've had our instructional coaches go in and work in 2 classrooms so that the 3 teachers of first grade, for example, could be in 1 classroom together, looking at the same lesson, watching a model, reflecting together, and then planning their instruction to give them some more support and time together.
When we talk about foundation, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just the feedback I got from visiting all the schools, from the teachers, the coaches, and having them, not having to teach all their class all the time, breaking out, and having someone else do it. They universally said that was so helpful for, because when you're trying to teach all these kids to read, some struggle to be able to separate that breaking out that we're talking about. Just as everyone says the same thing. So thanks for providing that feedback. I'm sure you hear it from them too.
Yes. Thank you.
But I did want to note, because when you're looking at words up here, Wilson is a person. Her name is Barbara Wilson.
Oh.
She created the program, Wilson Reading, and she created it for adults. And we used it a lot at the middle level and high school level. And when they saw the success in public schools, because she did not create this for schools, I've met her a couple times. Then it was the push from the elementary level, like how can you take this Wilson reading system and adapt it to primary kids? That is when we say foundations. That's the word they use. It's an Orton Gillingham explicit program to teach phonics.
It's one of the beautiful things where we find for inclusive practices, where you take something that was used, developed to benefit one group of people, and then apply it to all because you find out that there's a benefit for all. So Wilson was developed to help people with dyslexia read, write, figure out language, and we figured out that, hey, these are actually skills that benefit all readers, all writers, and then developed down from there.
So they made it so cute. There's an owl. I taught ninth grade. They didn't use the owl. It makes sense, right? Just so you understand the words that we talked about.
I won't go through all of this, but we've also had our reading specialists engage in specific professional learning targeted to the programs so that they can support obviously the students that they're pulling out and pushing in to support, but as well as to be the literacy advocates in their buildings, right? If I have a question about how to do something in my classroom, I can go right down the hall to my reading specialist. They don't need to wait for me or a coach or the next time we have professional learning and can get together. And that has been hugely impactful. We have also, one of our reading specialists right now is Wilson certified as well as facilitator certified. And so we do our professional learning in this district in-house. We do not have to contract out with the company because we have invested in our own reading specialists. We have 4 more reading specialists going through that program and facilitation training next year. So by the end of next spring, we will have 5 in-house trainers.
That was funded through federal, we used our federal money for that.
Would they be at each school or they would rotate?
Okay. We also wanted to put up here, there's 2 different slides. You've seen this several times before. These are our PSSA results from last school year. And you can see we've had growth across the board in RELA from 3 through 8.
And at the high school, because East Oakland was higher than it's been in a while.
And so, we feel confident that we're starting to see the effects of this programming being consistent and in place, and we will continue to see this, especially as we expand with that foundational literacy in grade 2.
But here's the ta-da.
Here's the ta-da,
we just
which I
got
just pulled this
Friday.
on Friday because I finally had. So one of the assessments that we give our K1 to 3 students is called the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills, the DIBELS. You've heard of that before. And so I took the first grade data from the beginning of this year and compared that to what they literally just finished last week. for the end of the year data, so we could see the impact of implementing foundations through grade 1. So you can fall into 3 categories on this assessment for your score, which is intensive, strategic, or core plus. Intensive would indicate a student who's unlikely to achieve reading proficiency without targeted intervention and instructional support. Strategic is maybe they're struggling with 1 or 2 elements of reading, and so they're going to need additional instruction probably in a small group, which we'd see it's still in the classroom. And then your core plus is a student who's making adequate progress for that benchmark. So you can see at the beginning of this school year, we had 53% of our students in core plus, and at the end of the year, we have 76% of our first grade students
That's really
in core
impressive.
plus.
It really is, and thanks to Dr. Brockman for helping.
Yes, Dr. Brockman helped me pull this data quickly.
Yes.
2 things I definitely wanted to point out on the right-hand side there. We had 31 students, or 32.6% of our students, progress from intensive to core or core plus. So they made more than 1 year's worth of growth.
And that's likely directly correlated with foundations.
Yes.
Do you have prior years to compare them to?
We have, yes.
Because we want to see, I mean, they improve every year, but I guess the idea is to compare it to the year before, to say, hey, we only grew X percent, now this year we grew. So that it's really, because otherwise you can't compare it.
But it's
I'd
the stabilization of the programming that we have to be careful of. This is a stabilization of grade 1. So if you look at this year's data, you can compare them next year.
Next year, or the previous year too.
Well, this group of kids,
Well,
because they would have been kindergarten.
Right, they have.
no, well, I
You
understand
mean
that.
grade
I
1,
mean,
grade 1,
grade
grade 1.
every year.
Yes.
So are we
We
doing
want to see a
that?
progression of this
Well,
program.
right.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at the data, and to really understand it, making an impact, is to look at it over time. Because we see it every year, we see jumps in this. It's really hard unless you see the whole picture, so I encourage you to think about that and to show.
Yes, so we will also take this group of students we know had the programming in K and 1, and they're also going to have it next year in 2, and we'll be able to look at this cohort of students to see how that has affected their primary.
Versus the people in
yes.
second grade year before we can go through it, and maybe show.
Yep.
Graph through, that's to show how successful it's been.
Yes.
Because that's the end result, right? It's
That is-
TSA score, everyone wants to show improvement in that, and you can prove that over years that it's rising, continue, and show how much, as opposed to just showing 1 year snapshots. It shows that they're the true.
So this is fantastic. My questions were around, so if we're gonna add it to second grade, would we plan to add it to third, or does it stop at a certain year? Okay, so second grade would
It
be
took
the
a lot of
end of it.
convincing to get it in second grade even, to
Okay.
be honest.
What do you mean?
And- Well, because at second grade, kids really do see whole parts of words, and you can start building multisyllabic words in second grade. The real reason why we did it was because the kids in kindergarten and first, and the teachers in kindergarten and first, have a different understanding of phonics development. So you really do need to go to second grade, so that everybody's speaking the same language and the kids have the same instruction. So that solidifies it, but that's enough. For most kids, if you are not solidified in second grade, there's probably something else going on. It's time in third grade to move away from that.
Okay. And then I guess, bigger picture, like, a system in terms of, new teachers come in, do they go through a set of training and there's.
So at the beginning of in August, at the beginning of the year, we pull all new teachers in general education and special education who haven't gone through this training, and because we have the facilitators in-house, we schedule that around what works for our teachers. And then we will pull them again, probably October-ish for another half day, so that they can get back together. I'm in this now, and these are all of my questions, and this doesn't sound or look like what I thought it was going to look like, and we provide that pretty early on, as well as start those classroom visits right in September to have the model lessons and all of that happening to support. So nobody engages in any of the programming without training first.
Okay. And I guess some way to gauge, like if all the elementary schools have equal resource or, you know, equal access, they can all do this, you know, they can all execute it with their K through 2 students.
Well, the train-the-trainer model guarantees that.
Okay.
And then they're all here. Well,
Is this all the first graders in the district, or is
This
this?
is all first graders in the district, yes.
Because it's like,
Yeah, very much.
get as close to that goal as we possibly can in grade 3.
Great.
For the
Okay.
10 viewers watching, and anyone who may have arrived late, we have a tech school graduation ceremony in the auditorium, so some of us are to,
I'll go ahead and hold space so those that need to depart can depart.
thank you.
Just one other thing. This is a good report to show everything that you do and what the supervisors do. It shows how many things would fall through the cracks if you did the supervisor. It shows the value of what you do to the district. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have the very best supervisors, so I thank you.
Hearing all the
Yes, we
things-
do. Yes.
Hearing all the
Yeah.
things you do to keep the program going, to get continuity between the teachers from grade to grade, ensure their students is valuable, so.
In that case, on to second public comment.
Just us. I
Who wants to?
mean, you know what I'm gonna say, right, go ahead.
All right, according to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. Our first public comment here, the second public comment period, is going to be Jane Kramer.
Hi, thank you. Jane Kramer, Sellersville. Thank you for the great presentations tonight. I know my friend Ross is really sad that he wasn't here for the science presentation. He'll geek out later, I'm sure. But I just wanted to come up and say I'm disappointed that there wasn't a policy committee meeting tonight. I'm grateful that the board majority passed the bathroom policy at the last meeting. I'd really like to see the board prioritize removing the rest of the discriminatory policies that were brought to this district by the Independence Law Center, specifically the library policy, advocacy policy, and sports policy by September. Another group of students coming into Penn Ridge High School, and into Penn Ridge in general, should not have to experience living under those policies. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that. But again, really enjoyed the presentations tonight, and you know, I hope you can meet that goal of September.
And next public comment, Laura Foster.
Alright, so Laura and Ms. Rocco. So Chris left, but I just wanted to thank Chris for the presentation on the career pathways. I had the opportunity to participate last year in the career at Ramsday to talk about the field of psychology, you know, going from like crisis to outpatient services. And the students were really cool, and it was a great opportunity, I think, to kind of have discussions that extend beyond the classroom. Also, thank you, Jenna, for answering my question about 5th grade. And then, just so we're all clear, Jordan isn't on the curriculum committee. I don't know why she's monopolizing the conversation so much on this this time here. I am really not a fan of her pushing her personal beliefs into this school. My kids are heavy into STEM. Definitely want to pursue this as they go into college. I don't want them to be ill-prepared because Jordan wants to take up space complaining about fossils. Like, I really don't want my kids to be taught creationalism. That's for a Christian school, that's not for a public school. If Jordan can produce evidence-based research against climate change, you know, like the ones that aren't made by the coal industry, go for it. But I trust that our teachers and our administrators will teach the facts and not her opinions. Because I am sick of her opinions being part of these conversations. Because she comes from this place of wanting to turn our public education system into a private Christian school does not mean that we have to do this. She's not even part of this committee. So I would encourage the rest of the curriculum, especially the chairs, to voice some other opinions outside of hers, so that we can hear like what that curriculum committee is actually about and not Jordan's. And Ron, just to be clear, she should not be on any committee. She should not be a school director. She shouldn't even be in the schools based on what she did. So, you know, if they're watching, Jordan and Ricky, please provide some evidence on if you're gonna like refute, I can't speak, if you're gonna like go against what came out of Darren's article, not just your opinions. Because if there are emails out there that show that what happened wasn't true, I wanna see the emails. Our community deserves to see the emails unredacted, not just with like her little snippets on it. Thank you. That's it.
And on that note, have a lovely night.
Still one?